This man, Anos, is without a doubt the GOAT. He is such an incredible character to follow, but some of the situations he gets thrown into, it's hard not to laugh. I mean, you, all things considered, went to a magical forest with fairies, had a talking tree with some Donkey Kong. If anyone ever saw that animated Donkey Kong show from like the 90s or whatever, the way that man's mouth was moving on that tree, it was some wacky ass 3D. But I have to admit, a talking tree forcing him to take a test where he still outsmarts anyone. This is now 2 episodes in a row someone's made the fatal mistake of doing some pack-binding bet because it just bites him right in the butt. But I love this show. It is so goofy, it is so silly. If you remove Anos from the picture, it's a pretty generic high school magic anime series, but by placing him a part of this cast, it all just becomes such a wacky adventure where you're not sure, are we parodying? Are we being dead-ass serious? We don't know. All I can say is I have a blast watching this show, and the antics that pop up and the innuendos at times, such as Anos' wood. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, right? I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon, so if you want to see that, consider supporting. But yeah, this episode, fun times once again. I wouldn't say it was as good as maybe last week's episode, but I mean, we're 3 episodes into this new season, and I'm as eager as ever, and maybe even a little more eager, just because I forgot how much I love this world and its cast of characters. There's some great mystery being drawn out with this season, the whole concept of which one of his members, I mean, is it gonna be Misha, is it gonna be Sasha, you know, the whole like godchild thing. It's a pretty interesting plot line. They might be completely red herring us and it's gonna be none of the characters we're seeing, but I mean, they just kind of casually move on from plot to plot, and I think you look at an episode like this, and all things considered, they didn't beat around the bush, they didn't waste any time, they didn't drag anything out. We're in a study arc, like that's what this episode was. We're trying to get into a magical forest, then we're trying to get some answers from a creepy guy, and the talking tree teacher made us have to get like 90% of the score for all the people. That's what the episode was, and they didn't make us drag off the studying. They had a week's time as it was confirmed. No, they sped through that because would it be interesting? Would it be fun watching these characters truly hit the books? No, it wouldn't. It would be boring. But for maybe 2 minutes, would it be entertaining? Yeah, we see our boy pull down 100 books, flips through all the pages, says, that's some pretty interesting stuff. We have Misha and Sasha, one of which being like, well, how did you read that? And the other being like, I could only read half. And he's just like pouring information into their brains. It's just some goofy, fun stuff. And this is what I like about it, because I can watch generic shows, and sometimes, for no reason, maybe it's just because I hadn't watched one in a while, I can get a kick out of them. I can say this is mindless, brain mush fun, and I have a good time. But they're not the shows I go out of my way to watch. Misfit, and I truly feel this way, this isn't an insult by any means, I think it's part of the formula. You remove Anos, pretty much everything that happens in this show is like generic template, the high school Demon King stuff. But because he's a part of it no matter what, and even if he's not on screen, he has influence on how the show's progressing. You just turn it into something that, you know, it's kind of like the same reason I like stuff like One Punch Man, right? It's such a goofy premise that just one simple misdirection, which is Anos' character in this case, turns the show into something that's just a hoot. That's probably the best way to put it, right? And I mean, yeah, I think Tree CG was goofy as hell. Like, I was laughing. Like, as soon as I saw that thing move, I was laughing. It's like some 90s 3D on like some like 3D shows at like on the Donkey Kong animated show that I watched when I was a kid. It's goofy as hell, but I think it makes it work. Like, did they need to go that direction? Probably not. I mean, it was just a tree. It wasn't moving around. You probably could add a flat face on it, but maybe it was an artistic thing because they wanted to have a 3D look. I don't know the reason, if it was meant to be funny from the producer's point of view, or if it was just something that accidentally became funny. But do not touch that 3D. Blu-rays, none of that. Just keep it as is because it is hilarious. I don't think it was meant to be as funny as it turned out. But man, did I like it, because it was just like weird, man. It was like in a different show, but still a part of this show. It was some wacky stuff. But all things considered, as much as I'm memeing the 3D on this tree, that's probably the best teacher ever. I was getting some PTSD / good reminders of 2 different math teachers I had when I was in high school. One of which, if you didn't do the formula the exact way she wanted, you would fail. Even if you got the right answer and you show your steps of how you got there, it's still a fail because you didn't do it her way. My other math teacher, who I actually enjoyed, as long as you showed your work, he would give you the answer. You end up with these questions, right? It's some BS, it's some cheating on this one dude's side. But yeah, it's supposed to be 17, but you could count it to 21, or maybe there's a different interpretation. The most lax teacher I think you could probably have, and just getting reminded of my own schooling for a decade back there, I mean, it was just fantastic to just be like, this teacher, hilarious to look at, goofy in terms of a production value, but man, best teacher right there. And I just can't believe the fact that this episode really is summed down to a talking tree made Anos take a test. But I mean, if there's a character next episode or even the episode after that makes some form of spellbinding pact and like bets them on something, they're just dumb at this point. Like, they're beyond dumb, because this is now 2 times in a row he's made a bet and has outsmarted the person who thought they had the trump card and was able to pull the rug from Anos' feet. The way they got into the forest, though, I thought was really funny, because they were trying to make the fairies laugh, and they were doing some goofy things, like they were mimicking, like, hey, who am I? Or they tried to tell a knock-knock joke, which then in return was just flirting. But the wood joke left me rolling. So the big group of like groupies of Anos all come in, and I was like, what is this? I thought at first, like the little puffball at the end, I thought maybe if you spun it, it was like an instrument. But no, it's Anos wood. And like the fact that they're holding Anos's wood, and then he holds it and gives it to them, and then the blushing, even if they weren't maybe going as innuendo as I'm alluding to, it was still funny nonetheless. And the fact that the whole groupies and just their goofy atmosphere, I mean, I was saying it in the live reaction, like, you just need to follow Anos for a couple of minutes and they're gonna laugh, because his life is just a living meme. It's hilarious. And that's basically what happened. And the fact that he can just so deadass be like, hey, you think like moving the moon is something I couldn't do? It's basically child's play. The dude's Chad energy is just off the charts. And I've said it now 2 episodes in a row, but I really like his new VA. Now, don't get it twisted, in case this is your first time watching a video of mine on this series. I would have preferred it if we never changed VAs. But in terms of what I'm seeing with this dude, he is a perfect fit. Like, you could have casted him as the first VA for Anos, and I don't think there would have been any different reception to this show. It still would have been as strong as it is, because we kind of struck gold with 2 talented VAs being able to voice this character, because both of which are making Anos feel like Anos, and it's just absolutely beautiful to follow. Like, this episode may not have had the sharpest production details, even ignoring the goofy tree face. I mean, it wasn't the sharpest looking episode outside of background details. Those were absolutely drop dead gorgeous. The general magical forest, it reminded me of Somali and the Forest Spirit, which was all hand-painted backgrounds. This was beautiful background imagery. But in terms of general character model consistencies, yeah, you can nitpick and point it out, but as long as the episodes are fun, that's all I look for this show. Are you telling a fun story that makes me laugh, like the action, and be intrigued by the mystery? They're checking off all the boxes. And for me, that's all I look for this show. It's never going to be my anime of the season. It's never going to be my top anime of all time. It's going to be similar to a Bofuri of a season, one of the most fun shows you can watch in a season. And that's all I look for in this show. And I have a blast following it. But I'll pass the torch over to you. What did you think of Talking Tree and everything else that we witnessed in this episode? Do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to ring that bell if you want to get as many notifications as possible. And like I mentioned, there is a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon. And while you're there, you also get yourself a video shoutout like a few are about to get here. So we got Jannice, Lumapas, Jeremy, Estrella, and Jared Fan. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.